Hello, everyone,
Hi,
and
everyone.
hey, welcome. I have a very special guest, and I hope those of you that are coming in. Hey, Tammy Pie, nice to see you. I've got a very special guest today. I have T. Susan Chang, and she has just created this beautiful book out, The Living Tarot. Let me give you guys a rundown because this is definitely a tarot queen amongst tarot
Oh my goodness.
queens. Um, you've been reading tarot for 25 years. You're
Mhm.
the author of Tarot Correspondences, Ancient Secrets for Everyday Readers. That come out in 2018.
Mhm.
36 Secrets, a decanic journey through the minor arcana of tarot, the co-author of Tarot Deciphered, Decoding Esoteric Symbolism in Modern Tarot. You are the co-host with Mel Meline of Fortune's Wheelhouse, and you're doing a ton of classes and readings and did anything I missed there?
That's most of my tarot resume. Yes.
I know I was actually looking through. I was just like, I actually had this out already because I was looking up something and I knew you'd probably had that information in there. I was like, I need to see.
Fetch
Um,
me the doorstop.
so welcome. How are you
Thank you,
today? How are
Jenna.
you
It's so
doing?
good to be with you.
Good to be with
We first
you.
met at Omega last year,
Mhm.
and it's so good to be in conversation with you.
It was so good to watch you work, especially with the way you did the
I
what
did
was
the
it?
minors and you did the courts, and you are just a rock star.
Aw,
You
thanks.
really
What was
are.
it? I'm sorry, I'm forgetting that what you called it. With the
Oh,
mandalas that
image
we were.
magic. Yes,
Yeah,
the image
yeah.
magic. Yes, I did that for Omega last year. Yes, it's a lot of fun.
It was so much fun. And I just remember, what was it? We were drinking wine in front of
On your little
your
porch. Yeah.
cabin, and you were started to incite something in Greek, and my jaw dropped.
Oh yeah, I think it was like, yeah, it was like a Saturday, and it was like Saturn hours, so I was doing the hymn to Cronus or something like that, probably.
Mhm. And so you finished this up around that time. Was it in summer of 22?
Yeah, the Living Tarot book. Yeah, I
Mhm.
probably finished it. This is the material I had developed for my course, The Living Tarot, which is online, but I wanted it out and available in book form to make it more readily accessible for people. And yeah, I kind of worked with Llewellyn on it over the course of last year, and they've been great. They've been amazing, wonderfully supportive, as you know, being a Llewellyn author
Mhm.
yourself.
Mhm. Mhm.
And yeah, so it literally just came out, the minute I came back from Tide, the International Divination event. I landed home from Dallas, did my Living Tarot online class, and the next day, voila, book published. So it's been rock and roll.
Wow. Yeah. And
Yeah.
and I mean, you're probably an old hand at this, but me being the first time alone, I was like, this is exhausting. Like, this is so much work. But
Yeah.
I love the Living Tarot. I want to kind of get into it a little bit because
Okay.
the way you have it set up is so cool. Like, I love how you have things as assignments and really
Yeah.
coming at this from kind of a workbook modality. But I've seen workbooks in the past, not just tarot, but in general, and they're not evocative. It's like, how do you feel today? And then all these lines, and you're just like, I don't want to fill this out. But this is a lot of really beautifully in-depth, synthesized information put in tremendously accessible form for people of
Thank you.
all
That's the
levels.
hope.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is the hope. And I was, at first when we were discussing it, Llewellyn and me, we were trying to figure out how we would present this material. And they don't usually do workbooks, but they actually thought that this would be a good candidate for trying to do that. And I love the layout they came out with. I love the
Mhm.
size of it. I love the fact that there's like lines for you to write all over it. So, my thought is that working through this book might take, a few months to even a year or more, and that afterwards you have like a grimoire of your experience coming to learn this and develop this language, this personal language with the cards.
Yeah, I love it, and I love that you say that too, that it's really about the relationship of you as the reader connecting to your deck, and that's what I love about you. You don't come into this like, "I'm a tarot guru, and this is what I," even though everyone is like, "She's a tarot guru, do you know that?" But, but you don't, and, you're so, like, humble and helpful, and I think that's really in the spirit of Mary Gruen, Rachel Pollack, Omega, like there is this
Mm.
like we're here learning from one another.
From one another, exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and in fact,
mhm,
one of the first things, when I really wanted to like just bring tarot to everybody, and I tried many different ways of like trying to teach, before I started the Living Tarot online course, and it was sort of like I finally realized that everybody kind of has to figure it out for themselves in a way, just the way people figure out magic for themselves. People have to kind of carve their own path. And that's why so many people get discouraged when they just get this little white book and they're like, this is how I'm going to learn tarot, right? Because it's only a start and it's not the world's most helpful start for many people. So, and plus, even though I can tell you how I learned to read tarot, it's not going to be the same as the way
mhm,
you're going to learn it. And
mhm.
just as I think the language model is a pretty good model for tarot,
Yep.
just because, there everything that is around you, you want to be able to express, and tarot is just another way of doing that. As
Mhm,
being like a phenomenal linguist yourself, knowing
mhm.
like umpteen languages, you want to have fluency. You don't want to be
Uh-huh.
sitting there like saying, all I can say is, where is the bathroom? It's
Right.
like,
I say the
it's
exact
so
same thing.
frustrating.
Yeah. I mean, that was the premise of my book too, which is like we really
Yeah,
want to get to fluency at the same time as the grammar, and the accuracy will come
right.
later rather than like waiting, and then
Exactly.
by then you're like so freaked out.
Right.
So, um yeah, it's a self-directed workbook. It's got 8 sections. It was delivered from the course, like you kind of said that. So I have a few quotes that I pulled out that I
Yeah.
thought were really interesting, and I wanted to talk about them with you more, if I
Okay.
may.
Yeah.
Um, like page 2, let's start there. You write, "Tarot is weird and uncanny and miraculous." Mm, yeah, like, so, to not put you on the spot too much, but, like, how do you remember this weird, uncanny, and miraculous action of tarot
Yeah.
showing up for you? Um
Yeah. I would say right from day one. I mean, like the very first
mm,
story that I tell about, like my first Rider-Waite Smith deck that I got at Barnes and Noble, and I did buy it for myself,
Whoa, what?
Ooh.
No, no.
I did buy it for myself, and like the
Mm,
very first card that I drew from it was the Queen of Swords, and that was, very much she really defined that era of my life. And I have actually seen studies, people doing like Myers-Briggs types personality breakdowns, and a high number, the largest category of tarot readers identify as Queen of Swords for
mm.
whatever reason. But yeah, that
Yeah.
was my first like, whoa, because I kind of knew about her already, and then I got this deck, and first thing was like, wow. And I've noticed that a lot, just reading for people, that very often the first court card is like the one for them, the first court card
Mhm,
that shows up, which is
mhm,
crazy. And then the next story that kind of comes to mind all the time for me was like, I was struggling like everybody, just trying to learn for like the first month or two, and I
mhm.
took my cards everywhere I went, and I tried to memorize them, and I was like, you know, I'd probably like read about whoever I had a crush on 5 million times, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, this is just not, it's kind of Department of Diminishing Returns here. Should I just like, you know, I mean, forget about him. These cards, what even? And I remember I was like sitting on a bus or a train, and I was literally ready to give up. And I said, Tarot, you know, what should I keep going with this? I mean, really, honestly? And so I drew two cards, and I got the Magician and the Strength card. And I looked at those 2 cards, I'm like, "Okay, I don't know thing A about tarot, but I can see that these, like, 2 people with the infinity signs over their heads, that's something big." So, and I felt like, "Okay, no matter what I don't know now, I'm gonna figure it out. I'm gonna learn it. It's gonna become part of me, and it's gonna become
Mhm,
really important for me." So,
mhm,
I guess I'll
mhm.
keep going.
Mm. You're like, all right, I'm gonna
Whatever.
whatever." Yeah, see, I someone's a really tarotist if, they have a very casual and flippant, like, relationship with tarot where it's like, whatever, it's not all like, "Oh," right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
you're
I
kind
am
of
a
in
great
trenches with
believer
it,
in,
right?
like,
Mm,
what I call ambient tarot of just sort
mm,
of like,
yeah,
and Rachel Pollack used to do this all the time. She would,
mhm,
like, sitting there talking to you, and she'd just be like, "What does tarot say?" kind of a thing.
mhm,
I
mhm,
remember I was at this conference, and I was gonna do a recording session with the astrologer Austin Coppock, who was there too, and we
mhm.
were looking for this little cottage somebody had, had found that would be quiet enough to record in, and we were, like, going along and, like, breaking and entering all these cottages and not knowing whether it was the right one, and finally we went in and we thought, "I think this is it," and we, like, picked up our decks and it's like I remember we got the Fool, and we're like, "Okay, this is fine. This will do."
That's hilarious. You're like, "Which is this the right one to break into? I don't know, I gotta."
Oh my god.
Man, keep it wild. You keep it wild. So, I'm gonna make a big jump ahead all the way to page 100 because there's something you said, and I know this like with the full awareness, now that I have my book out, that like every person who interviews you is going to bring out different things, and it often has to do with
Oh, yeah.
them, right? And
Mhm.
like what is their idea. So, page 100, you talk about conceptual structures beneath proposed models of reality. Oh,
Oh, that's such a Jenna thing. It's like
you're like, oh, it's so exciting. Oh, let's get into it. So, conceptual structures beneath proposed model, that consensus reality, right? And
Oh.
symbols equal reality. And that felt like a lot of what you were doing in Omega too, was really trying to do it in a way that's very approachable and not like
Mm.
overwhelming for people that aren't like magicians per se, you know?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So can we talk about that, like a proposed model of reality?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah, no, I think that in order to sort of be comfortable doing tarot, we have to kind of go to a place. It's not just like normal life, normal place. I often talk about it as like the backstage of reality. That was the first model I used.
mm,
But nowadays, I kind of think that, one really beautiful way of conceptualizing what we're doing in a tarot reading is like to imagine looking up at a field of stars, right? You're looking up at the starry night sky, and the stars are just there. They don't have their own agenda. They don't have any like pattern that they came up with, but
right.
we project our patterns onto them. We've made the constellations. We are the ones who created that
Mhm,
that archetypal myth that
mhm,
informs our reality. And to me, it's like when we think about um, doing a reading, what we're doing is we're looking at something that does not have its own agenda, but
mhm,
which we create a narrative. We create with the cards this truth that is subjectively based, but
Mhm.
and that seems to diminish it, but it doesn't.
Mhm.
Subjectivity is the core of tarot.
Mhm.
And I think about this a lot when I'm talking to Jungians, which I do a ton.
Mm.
um,
Mhm.
I've been doing a lot of work on synchronicity lately.
Mhm.
And what I think what's going on when we are at the center of a tarot reading in the oracular moment is that, we are in two places at once. We are sort of in our sort of cyclical, linear, causal point A to point B reality, but we're
Mhm.
also at the same time in the timeless, eternal pattern
Mhm.
of the
Mhm.
cosmos, right? And
Mhm.
that what we do in a reading is we stand in the center of those two realities and we come back with something that's subjectively truthful. So, and I think that there is never going to be any way to prove that this works. And there probably shouldn't be because every person's different, right?
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
but the good news is that anybody can do this because we all have a point of view. We
Mhm.
all have a relationship to the universe around us. And that's the engine that I think drives our readings. So,
Yeah.
there's in Jung's in Marie Louise von Franz, she's a Jungian, in her essay on synchronicity and divination, she talks about that sort of intersection of the sort of linear with the acausal, timeless
Mhm.
universe, as that
Mhm.
intersection of those two things as the breathing hole of eternity, this spiraculum aeternitatis. And to me, that's where we go in the
Mhm.
oracular moment. It's both a place and a time that
Mhm.
is um, special and different and in
Mhm.
which we can find out something that we couldn't otherwise find
Mhm.
out. Same
Mhm.
thing with magic. I think that's
Mhm.
where we go for magic as well.
Mhm. I love that you brought up, Yoav Bendov's oracular moment.
Yeah,
I I'm
yeah,
I'm a huge fan, RIP, but a huge
I
fan
know.
of
He was great.
Yoav. He's
Yeah.
amazing, Yoav's work, and, um, yeah, and that he's a physicist, like, just makes
I
it
know.
so much more exciting.
Well, it's the more I read about like people who want to understand how this shit works, the more quantum physics we get into.
Yeah, and it's funny, like, as you're talking about that, like, the timeless and then the causal, right? The time and the timeless, and
Hmm.
I think if before we really came to the Enlightenment period of, like, really the 1700s, I would say, as we kinda
Yeah,
moved into that
yeah.
more materialist and deterministic framework of the universe, um, people from indigenous cultures would have had no problem holding
No
both of those
problem
those at the same
whatsoever.
time,
Yeah,
none,
yeah.
and think it is
Oh, I've got some freezing going on here. Is it
oh,
on
me too.
my
Oh,
end?
there it goes. Oh, maybe it
There
was
we
a
go. Yeah.
oh,
uh, Lost you again. Or maybe it's me. Hmm.
you guys still hear us? Oh,
Yeah, I can hear you.
look at these little circles that keep circling.
Oh,
Yeah,
really?
it's me. I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
my
Is it your
Wi-Fi. I'm so
connection?
sorry.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay.
Let's go
Well,
ahead. Yeah.
I mean, I can just talk a little bit about that because, I think one thing that I read recently was that, if you live in an indigenous culture and you need to go hunting, right? And you
Mhm,
need to
mhm,
go, you must kill a bear or you won't eat, right?
mhm.
And everyone's on board with this. And then if somebody has a dream, you act on the dream and it's just completely normal, right? And the idea behind that is the Jungians like to call it the participation mystique, the mystic participation, where everybody shares a mind, a worldview, an understanding of how this, how the divine or the dream world informs the present and the reality. But here in the West, I think the problem is that we are fractured. We don't share a worldview. God knows if you look at the political situation, we certainly don't share a worldview. But even just in terms of our beliefs about the way reality works, or the belief about how creation works, or who was in charge of it all. So I think that it's the reading space is not only a space to find personal information, but a way of connecting with another human being as well. Now, I see that we have lost Jenna, and I hope that she's coming back. I cannot actually see any of you or your comments. So I guess I will just wait here and hope that she returns. In the meantime, I hope that everyone is enjoying the Living Tarot book, those of you who are watching. And what I would love more than ever is to see see screenshots of people writing in the book and what they've scribbled in the book
Ooh,
and what they've done to make it their own. That's what I would love to see on social media or email or whatever.
sorry about that.
That's okay.
I just had to yell at other people in the household and go, "Stop streaming right now. Get off of movies." No, I don't know how to I don't know. I'm like, "Come on, Mercury's direct now. Can we
Yeah, I
please?"
think we're still in the shadow, but it has been a mother of a Mercury retrograde.
It has. I was like, "Oh, man, it's good, like, I'm fine," and it was, like, the last week, bam. Phew. Um,
Yeah, yeah,
so, yeah, I wanna come back to that, um I wanted to talk about the oracular moment, yes, and I love that backstage behind reality. I think I
yeah.
love that
I
w
think I,
way
I got
of
that metaphor from American Gods from Neil Gaiman, I
Oh,
think,
really?
right? Yeah, yeah, like they're taking a cross country thing and they take a shortcut through like nowhere, through
Mhm,
like, the backstage behind reality. So
mhm,
yeah, yeah.
mhm. I was trying to remember where I was trying to get back to where we were, but I think that's okay.
We were
Oh,
talking about indigenous cultures and
yeah. Well, I
yeah.
was like, my Wi-Fi going out is an oracular moment too. Like,
Yes.
and then you gotta be like,
Yes.
"What's that about?" Right? So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think, like, you're striking at something that, that people can sometimes struggle with, when they read tarot, which is, like, suspending their own, maybe mechanistic or deterministic way
Yeah. Yeah.
and going, "That's true, and also this is true," and they don't actually have to fight each other for the ultimate
That's
true.
right. That's right. Yeah. I mean, it really is about the building of meaning. Like if you, from a scientific point of view, the more that you can repeat an experiment, the more similar the results are, the more, replicable it is, the more true it is. But it's the opposite with tarot.
Mhm,
You build meaning by doing it once. And, I have this whole sort of formula that I think about in doing tarot, the idea that like when we are engaged in the oracular moment, when we're engaged in a reading, it's a form of sacrifice. And what we
mm,
sacrifice is our doubt,
mm,
right? We sacrifice
lovely.
our doubt, and in return, we get meaning. However, if we say, oh, I wasn't concentrating, or maybe it means the fear of rejection, not actual rejection, or if we second guess ourselves and we draw and draw again, it's like we're increasing doubt, which means we're reducing meaning. Meaning exists in an inverse relationship to doubt. So
Mm,
I think that tarot is the ultimate meaning making machine, but what people don't realize always is that the meaning comes from you and you have
mm,
to put it there, right?
mm,
You don't get to just like, it's not just tarot opening its mouth and just telling you shit all the time.
mm.
It is a conversation.
Yeah, yeah. And that those synchronicities are really it's very transpersonal, transpsychological in a way, in that, um, if why is your mind showing you these things in these
Right,
ways? Why is it
right.
being filtered to you in these ways? And that alone is the information you need to go, "This is important."
Yeah, and just
Mhm,
because it's only your mind doesn't mean that it isn't incredibly powerful and magical, uh, like Dumbledore says in Harry Potter, right? Just because it's in your mind, why on earth should that mean it's not true, right? I
mhm,
think also that, like, you know, things that we genuinely consider magical, like, like you're suddenly looking for your keys and they fall off a shelf behind you. If you don't think your mind's involved in that, you're completely wrong.
Well, yeah, there's been some really interesting studies. Like I read through, oh my gosh, Rupert Sheldrake. I don't know, have you
Yeah,
read,
sure, sure. He's great.
like he
Yeah,
wrote The Sense of Being Stared At, and he has studied psychic phenomena. And it's pretty crazy. It's pretty amazing,
it
and
is. Yeah,
we can't
yeah,
really just throw it away. But there's more going on.
it
And I like a
absolutely
world
is.
like that. I don't want a
Yeah,
world where everything is explained in a mechanistic fashion.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
the gift of mystery and the gift of being, a small player in a large mysterious universe that may or may not have a personal relationship with me is very interesting.
Endlessly interesting.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not does he like me, it's does the universe like
It's the universe. Do you like me? You really like me. Um,
does Chad like me?
does Chad like oh, Chad.
Chad, remember
Yeah,
Chad?
yeah, I still use Chat. I think I've moved on to it. Like, it's been like, what was it? There was another name I used recently. I'm trying to add another Chad.
Yeah,
So for
yeah.
those of you guys, Chad is always like the name of my example person, like, is Chad coming back? Um, I wanted to talk a little bit about, just out of personal curiosity, like
Mhm.
you, this was interesting. I didn't expect this piece to be in here. 7.1, like tarot laws and local
Oh,
rules,
yeah, mhm.
um, which I was like, oh, wow, that's interesting. Because as you know, I'm a professional reader and I've had to dance around with these concepts throughout
Yeah,
uh,
yeah,
my my thing. So yeah, tell me a little bit about why
yeah.
you added this here, and maybe what some of your experience has been around that.
Yeah, totally. So I generally feel that, you know, Hmm. Because tarot is not a place that we usually go for our adulting needs. Like for like it's reading tarot is not like, buying a mortgage. It's not like, you know, um making your will. It's a different part of the brain. However, if you do tarot professionally in any way at all, you're going to run up against some of these, very real, legal realities. And
Mm,
so I think it's worthwhile to just be informed about
mhm,
what's going on. It's just
mhm.
it's a very small amount of adulting in this book, but it has to be done. And so, a lot of places that we live, some of us live in places that are very tolerant, and of us live in places that are not. And you want to know what your risks are. Now, I live in a place that is extremely tolerant, and there is a statute on the books that says that you need to have a license or something. And I keep meaning
Right.
to go down to the town hall and talk to my friend and say, should we do this thing at the next town meeting? I haven't actually done it because I'm not actually worried. However, I know that I should, and I
Mm,
probably will someday. But the one thing that I did run up against, which I am not alone in this, is that I used to use on my website, I used to take Stripe for payment. And
yep.
Stripe does not like fortune tellers or
Nope.
anything related to astrology,
Right.
tarot, divination. So now I can't take Stripe, so
Yeah.
yeah.
I have a story about that actually.
Do you?
I started using Stripe back in 2013 or
Hmm.
2014, like when Stripe was still pretty small potatoes. It wasn't like it was.
And for those who don't know, Stripe is a payment processor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They tried to boot me off, but I was using a scheduler for whom the only integration was Stripe.
Oh,
So I reached
yeah.
out to the guys who created the scheduler, and they were able to backdoor me
Oh my
into
God.
Stripe.
Wow.
So I used Stripe from like 2013, 2014 until about 2019.
Yeah.
Um, and all of a sudden they got too big where they didn't care. And they were like, we're giving you 3 days to get off the system.
Oh my
Three
God.
days. I was like, I've
Wow.
been with you for like 5 or 6 years. And I can show you there's not been almost any chargebacks because that's really the issue.
Yeah.
They ignored
Yeah.
it. They said whatever. So yeah, it's a funny thing because we readers, right? Like we're kind of sandwiched between the con artist readers
Yeah,
and then
yeah,
the public. And
precisely, yeah.
but where else is that true? Like, so there's a
Y
lot of like other con artists in other industries, and I don't know if they're painted with a similarly broad brush in this
yeah,
way.
probably
I don't
not.
know which
I don't
banks
know.
failed and why, but we also have our money in other banks. Like, I don't know,
Right,
like, so I'm
right,
glad you put that in there, and I
yeah,
think it's an interesting thing, and I think it speaks to something I think the tarot industry needs now, which is a like a professional organization,
yeah.
just so that people can band together and advocate as needed in these agencies.
Yeah, I think that would be wonderful, and it is something that we need in the tarot world. But as yet we don't have. Yeah, and I think in that
Mm,
chapter, I also wanted people to think about like, some of those questions that you would run up against, like in your book, you talk about this all the time, the kind of stuff that you just run into as a public person, and you
mhm,
go to a fair and somebody like, wants to know if they're going to die. And the short answer is, well, yeah, but there's questions that you're going to get that are going to make you
mhm,
uncomfortable, and you want to think about them in advance. And
mm,
there's no right answer as far as like what you should say, or what is the correct tarot reader's answer. It's different for everybody, but it's
mhm,
just worth thinking about. Like when somebody asks you, what did where is my lost necklace from 18 years ago? I'm going to be like, ask Jenna Matlin because I don't know.
no, no, yeah, I can't find my own keys half the time. Don't come to me with that those fine Englishes. Yeah,
And people will ask you stuff like that, or they'll ask you, what is Chad thinking, right?
mhm,
And I prefer to have Chad there, if we're going to ask what Chad is thinking. So
mhm, mhm.
I mean, generally I try to answer the question, whatever it is, but every once in a while, it's good to know
Yeah,
your
absolutely,
and to be honest
absolutely.
about them, because right
Mhm,
up front, if they know what you can and can't do, then there's
mhm.
no cause for being upset, right?
Yeah, everything is communication and consent, isn't it, when as
Yeah.
readers? It really
Yeah, yeah,
is.
yeah, absolutely.
So I know, some of the comments here in live, Rifflin the Mad, never looked at laws before living tarot, and it came in useful when a friend with OCD was targeted by a very determined psychic telephone line company.
Oh my goodness.
Wow. My friend gave
Wow.
thousands away to the psychic line who said they could stop bad things happening to her family.
Oh
And using the
gosh.
law, she got that money back. Yay.
Yeah,
Good.
yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Wow.
Wow.
Incredible. Oh,
Mhm. And that's why I think if we had a professional organization,
mhm.
and it's not about, even testing whether people can read tarot or not, but just
Yeah.
like, are we adhering to a code of ethics, and
Mhm.
that there is a body that would look at complaints, and then it could be like, if they're not part of this, then we cannot vouch that they are meeting these ethical
Right, right.
standards.
We need something that's sort of modeled on the counseling professions.
Yeah.
It's the
Yeah,
same type of
absolutely.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, supervision would be great too. It'd be nice to be like, "Someone help me out with this reading that happened. I don't know, it was crazy." Um, but I told you, like, that was like a sidebar, but I was just
Yeah.
like, so
Yeah.
yeah, I was like, "Let's talk about physics and reality, and then now let's talk about the local laws." Um, I'm all over the place.
Yeah.
Oh, I did want to talk about on page 205, you really go into depth about results, differences, and offerings.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought that was
Yeah.
really interesting, and I wanna know if you
Yeah.
wanted to talk about that a little bit.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure, because that was a thing that happened. I'm not the most visionary person ever, but I do get dreams, and sometimes they're really meaningful dreams for me. And this results differences often came out of a dream. I was like just sort of like washing up groggily on the shores of dawn, one morning after like a who knows what I'd been doing the night before. But I remember, I
Mm,
didn't remember a lot of my dream, but I did remember this these three sentences. Within results are differences, differences are offerings, and offerings are results. And so I was like, what the fuck? and, and I was, so I was like pondering over that line there, and I was like, you know what? I think this has to do with like tarot and magic because everything has to do with tarot as far as I'm concerned,
Mhm.
and and about and it was obvious to me that it had something to do with my interface, with reality.
Mhm.
So I kind of thought about it, and it seemed to me, okay, what is that? How does that compare to doing a tarot reading? Like if I draw
Mhm.
my card of the day, and I know you don't do this, but lots of people do, and if I
It's
draw my
fine.
card,
I don't
I know you're very anti card, but I'm a very
well,
huge pro card of the day.
just for as a beginner maneuver. I'm not against it. I wanna be clear. Just as for like a very, very beginner maneuver, it can sometimes
Can
be
sometimes throw
confusing.
people off
But like if
without an
you're not
appropriate guide.
yeah, yeah, totally.
So I thought about like what it's like when I do my card of the day, and I thought, okay, so within the results are the cards that I draw. Like you shuffle and then you get cards. That's a result. But the the cards that you get within those results are differences. And what are differences? Differences are it could mean a lot of different things, right?
Mm.
It could mean, there's a million sort of traditional interpretations, there's a million personal interpretations, esoteric interpretations, and every person sees it differently. But within results or differences, differences are offerings. So my way of reading it, my different way of reading this card is an offering to the universe, right? It is like
Mm.
my view of reality based on this card is an offering to the
Mhm.
universe.
Mhm.
And like for example, I got these
Yeah.
the nine of pentacles glare and the sun today, right?
Uh-huh.
And so I feel that the one thing I really noticed about these two cards is that they both are take place within a walled garden, right?
Yeah.
Which is an
Yeah.
interesting thing about Rider-Waite-Smith. And I spent this morning at my daughter's school, kind of trying to set up some hmm, sanctuary for her there, so that she can
Mm.
get through this very difficult time that she's having. And
Mm.
I thought about these cards as being you know um, uh, therefore sort of like in relationship to that sanctuary that I was creating for her. And so, so that's my interpretation. That's my offering.
Mm.
And then offerings are results. That's how I want that to play out. That's how I want these two cards to show up in reality, right?
Yeah.
Offerings are results means so mote it be. This is how it's going to be.
That's so that's really subtle and interesting. It's kinda like the chicken and the egg, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, and it is
Mhm.
cyclical, right?
Mhm.
Because what you're doing is you're changing the meaning of results as you go. Results are random at first, and then they're intentional by the time you get to the end.
Right, but how is it that the differences come to you, you know what I mean?
Right, right. So, and the thing is that, like, when I see the cards, I think about my day and I think about what I want from my
Mm.
day. And then
Mhm.
I write a spell. And to me, that like seals my intention into that. So, like today, I wrote, here within this garden wall, design your freedom, heed the call.
Lovely.
So,
So you are already like, that's really like, you're, like, thinking on some level, perhaps, about creation of the sanctuary for your daughter, and then you
mhm,
pull these cards, and you're like, "Oh, 2
yeah.
walled gardens. Huh." And
What can I
so
do with this?
that is me really placing that intention that or that manifestation work to put that out,
Right,
and then,
right. Because
like
you
mhm,
can imagine that this could mean something else, right? It could be
mhm,
about like, being in the public eye with the sun, or it could
yep,
be about like doing something with my money or my bank or something like that.
mhm,
But there's a very specific thing I wanted to get out of it. And and it's just a conversation, right? I talk to Tarot, and Tarot sometimes talks back, and sometimes Tarot's like, yeah, sure. And sometimes Tarot's like, talk
uh-huh,
to the hand.
mm,
So, but generally, I think it's good because it gives me sort of a functional way of approaching the day, you know?
mhm, mhm.
And at the end of the year, after like an entire zodiacal cycle, I take all these spells and I burn them in the hearth, and that's and that's it.
It's beautiful.
It's a good ritual. It makes you
It really is.
feel real, It makes you
Yeah.
feel like you've had this whole conversation that's ongoing. Yeah.
It's so interesting. Like as you're talking through this, I'm like, so who's what when is providing that difference in that moment? Like, is there a
Hmm.
future you impacting on the present you? If we really see that time is it's
Yeah.
timey-wimey, isn't it? Um,
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
mhm.
and there are definitely times
Or
when,
others?
yeah, there are
Mhm.
times when I write the spell and I have no idea what it means, you know.
Mm,
I have
mhm.
no idea what it means, and I'm open to seeing how it plays out. I just look at the symbols and I create something that has something to do with the
Mm,
symbols. And because of tracking, I can look back and say,
mhm.
okay, here are all the times I have drawn these two cards together and how they've shown up, and I can see the through line between those. Like
Mhm,
this
mhm,
one, this combination I have gotten 0 times before, so I don't have that. But the one I got yesterday, I'd gotten 5 times before. So, I can see, like, who how the circumstances, it's like watching an astrological transit, right?
mhm.
Different life circumstances lead to different results, but there's still sort of a through line. There's a sort of metaphorical or archetypal through line in the experience.
And I love how you, like, just stitched together so elegantly that you have that oracular moment of insight, but at the same time it is that manifestation, right? It's kind of a 2 for 1 deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
And yeah,
but
yeah,
offering, right?
absolutely.
So you're like, it's not all about you too, is it?
Right,
Mhm.
right. And the thing
Mhm.
is that it is a way of acknowledging also that the cards are gonna show up. The cards
Yeah.
are always right. The cards are always gonna show up. It may just not be the way you expect. You get to have a say in it, but it's not entirely up to you.
I really love how you just are able to bridge a more scientific approach as well as a magical approach as well as an esoteric approach. Um, I think that's rare sometimes,
Mm,
and because it's a hard place to be because you're having to be like,
mm,
these can both be true. And
yeah.
I can still get to ultimate truth with these or ultimate truth for me, knowing that
Yeah.
these both of these things are true. It's so
Yeah,
freaking
yeah, I
cool.
think so. It's interesting because, I think the tracking was really important to me because I wanted it to be grounded in some kind of empirical something, in some kind of empirical data, and I
Mhm.
wanted to be honest about it, I mean, to
Yeah.
figure out what the relationship between my intentions, biases, perspective is and what's actually happening. And I
Mhm.
feel like, you know, that is an ongoing work that will be happening for the rest of my life.
Mhm.
But I never want to be um, I never will find myself in a situation where
Mhm.
I look at the cards and I'm like, I have no idea what this had to do with my day. It always has something. And if it doesn't, it's because my brain's not big enough yet. That's all. You know, I will get there. So I just write down what happens, right?
Mm. Yeah, and sometimes the answer is wrapped within a riddle, like, that
Yeah.
you don't get it
Yeah.
unless there's some work involved.
Yeah, one of the
Um,
exercises I have people
mhm.
do, it's the
Mm.
last exercise in chapter 2, is to like describe your day in tarot terms, right?
Yeah.
And, to use that language. And then the exercise I have in chapter 1 is to capture 10 synchronicities. And the thing is that when, in the class, which we do online, monthly
Mhm.
on Zoom, we spend the entire first hour just talking about synchronicities that have happened because the things that people see are so amazing. They're just,
Mm.
like one woman was talking about how her father and his wife were walking in the snow outside the Vatican, and she started limping because she had the wrong shoes on, and it was so
Wow.
uncomfortable. And what card did she draw? It was the 5 of Pentacles. Of
Mm.
course it was, right? I mean, and we are living within this fabric of reality that's like a mirror and a window at the same time that, and that we're part of. We just can't see, like we can't see our own face, you know?
Mhm.
It's like
Mhm.
it's beautiful and we don't even recognize how beautiful we are. So, so I think that
Right.
that is like, that is the hope, to
Yeah.
understand that you are part of the fabric of reality, and that even when things are not easy, they are always full of meaning.
Yeah. What you're saying is really reminding me of I'm not gonna be able to give the quote because I'll butcher it, but what is it? Aldous Huxley, talked about our consciousness, the seat of consciousness of the mind as we are in these moments is more of a filter, where one type of consciousness is coming through out of the many that actually are extant to us. And I
Yeah,
was like, wow,
yeah.
I'm vibing with that. I'm vibing with that right now. I'm grokking
Yeah.
that hardcore, Huxley. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
so, oh, I just wanted to say, I love, like, you talk about, I love the way you said this, like the friends and family stage of reading tarot. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I was like,
yeah.
oh, that's perfect the way you said
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We all go through it, right? There's
Mhm.
like this long period where it's not even like you mind, it's like you want the practice, and you love being the center of attention, and like everybody wants a reading, and it's great. You're the life of the party. It's fantastic. And then at a certain point you're like, you realize after you've been doing this for 5 hours that you feel like the four horses of the apocalypse just rode through your body, that you're like exhausted, and in a way that that's not even about the two glasses of wine you had, right? It's like more than that. So, I mean, I think it's
Yeah.
really good to do a lot of reading, but
Mhm.
also, it's good to start in on the habits of psychic self-care.
Yes.
Yeah.
Indeed, indeed, indeed. Uh,
Yeah.
so Jolie asks a question. I think it may be for you. You state that we need an RWS deck as opposed to Marseille or Thoth.
Mhm.
Uh, what about RWS base, but with a more Celtic or garden witch style or such?
I think that's okay. I think it's fine. I mean, the only reason I think RWS is really important just because it is the lingua franca of tarot, and all the pictures in here are RWS, so it'll make it easier to use the book. But if you vibe with, a more Celtic inspired deck, and you can read the scenes and you can see your entire world in there, then sure, then that might be the deck for you.
I have a question. So this is not based off your book, but it's a phenomenon that I'm still like, oh, I have not been able to explain it sufficiently to myself. And so I'm going to give this problem for you to now have your IQ work on it for me and with me. Um, I have this phenomenon of, like, decks that I like aesthetically, like, "Oh, yeah, I'm totally Celtic tarot," or whatever
Yeah.
it is,
Yeah.
but it won't read for me very well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And I'm like, "Oh,"
totally.
and then there's other decks I'm like, "Oh, it's okay," but it, like, reads like
Completely.
the wind, and I'm like,
It reads like
"What
the wind. I love
is
that. Yeah.
this?" Like,
What is this?
it has nothing to
Yeah.
do with what I find aesthetically pleasing, and I have
Mhm.
not so it's not about whether I like the deck or not.
That is 100% a thing. Yeah,
What?
it
Like, I'm
totally
like,
is
"What?
a thing.
Oh, what is this?"
Why is that? Why is that? It's interesting. I actually just experimented with one of my non-reading decks. Like,
Ah,
years and years ago, I got a deck
mhm,
called the Old English Tarot, which was designed by Maggie Kneen, who did
mhm,
this wonderful deck called Psy Cards, which is an oracle deck, it's the only oracle deck I use, but I use it a lot. Anyway, she created this beautiful deck called the Old English Tarot, and I loved it, and I
mhm.
took it out, and I was like, I can't read the living day. Just cannot get this thing to go. It was like trying to like crank the engine on a motorboat, and nothing is happening. So I put it away, and then like just like a month ago, I took it out again, and now I can read it. I don't know why.
Oh,
I
mm,
think it's like the window versus mirror thing. It's like I'm
mm,
not actually looking entirely at the card anymore. It's like it's
mhm,
just a doorway. So
mm.
so I think it can change. The same thing with thought. The first time I got it, I was like, I am not reading this
You're
shit.
like, "Screw that thought." Yeah.
Yeah. It's just
Mhm.
too spooky for me. So, and then, 15, 20 years later, I'm like doing a podcast and
You're like
book.
you're like, "I am sufficiently evil enough for this deck. Yes." Yeah, no, I'm
Yeah,
just kidding.
I think it's just like sometimes it's just not a match between the person you are at the moment and the person that that's the ideal reader for the deck. But I
Mm.
do think can change, you know.
Mm.
But
Mm.
how many times have we all bought that pretty deck that just won't go?
You're just like, "Oh, oh," yeah, or like the
Yeah.
deck you randomly get from someone, and
Yeah.
you're just like, "Oh, well, I'll try it," and you're like, "Oh my god."
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you
Yeah.
found, like, decks that have, like, personalities? Like, some are like, "How dare you? How dare you try to use me as a for a party," or something? You know what I mean? You're just like, "Okay." Um
I don't know, I think yes, but I also think I'm less psychically sensitive than you are to, like, what my deck is telling me, so, I mean, I'm so used to, like, conversing and arguing and negotiating with decks that I sort of feel like, there's reluctance, but eventually we always cooperate at some
Mhm.
level, right?
It's
Some of them
interesting.
are just more so than others, and I
Mm.
think, to some degree, you know, it's about the deck giving you a chance and you giving the deck a chance.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. That's great.
Hmm.
Hmm. Ah, I could
It
keep you so much longer than this. Do you have time maybe to talk about, like, a little assignment we can do together just to for fun
Yeah,
with the
sure.
I mean, really like
Oh,
the DIY proverbs. I thought
you
that was,
wanna
like,
do DIY
simple
Proverbs?
and
Okay.
sweet
Yeah.
and really cool. So, what we're talking about let me see, where are
I think
you?
that's in like this is in chapter
Mm.
4 in this, I believe, I think. Yeah,
Oh, okay,
turn
thanks. I was
4.1.
like, "Wait, where did I"
Or 4 point yeah, 4.1. So basically the idea here on page 103.
Thank
The
you.
idea here is to, like, you know how we all have proverbs that sort of, honesty is the best policy, or like no rest for the wicked. That's one of my favorites. But we all have these proverbs which either illustrate or actually form the reality of, how we look at the world. And I was like, why don't we just make up our own proverbs, using the symbolism of the tarot cards? Because a lot of a lot of imagery in Proverbs is very visual, like the
Mm.
grass is greener, or my cup runneth over, or
Mhm,
things
mhm.
like that. No stone left unturned. So we can do that with our cards as well.
Oh,
You
can
want to
we
do
do
you want
one?
to
And
try it?
maybe yeah, like, and maybe the people that are here live, you can
Yeah,
write a proverb in for the card, and I
yeah.
will
Oh my
see.
God, that would be so cool. All right, I've got it right here.
Ah, ooh.
All right, what's it gonna be? What's it gonna be? Oh, how about that?
Oh, that's so funny. Ooh, well, I'm thinking of so it has to be a totally, like, not an old proverb, right?
Not an old one you make up based on what you see, right? Right.
Mm.
It can be dumb and it can be silly, you know. It can be like you don't need to wear clothes when you're riding a gentle horse, right?
Mm. Oh, man. I thought I was gonna be like, I was thinking like an old proverb, like, "All that shines is not
You can
gold," or something
all
that's
that
gonna
glitters
look
is
into
not
my
gold. Yeah,
so,
sure.
hmm.
And it doesn't even have to make sense, right? It doesn't like some I have a feeling that Proverbs, you know, they might have been really it's sort of like dead metaphors, right? Everybody
Mhm.
knows what proverb means, but when that proverb was first invented, it might not have made as much sense. It might have been more, offered more traction or resistance.
I would say so let me see here. I'm really looking at the horse and seeing that the horse has no reins, no bit,
Mhm.
and I would say, uh, "The road to success is riding a horse without reins."
Ah, I love it. That's fantastic. That's
Thank you.
fantastic. Oh my
Yeah, write
God,
that
so good.
down.
Yeah.
TM, y'all, trademarking that note. So, the
Yeah,
road to this is fun. Success
yeah,
is riding a horse without reins, and you know that
yeah.
that is my difference. So now is this gonna be the offering? Now is the offering,
Oh,
and those are gonna be
yeah.
my results. Oh,
And that's gonna be your results.
booyah.
Boom.
Love
You know
it.
what's weird about this that I never noticed before?
Hmm.
I mean, just because of the nature of drawing a picture like this, the sunflowers aren't turned towards the sun. right?
Yes,
They're like, "What sun?"
that's
I
right.
don't see a sun.
That's right.
That's
Huh.
sneaky. Huh.
So,
Interesting.
are you gonna do a proverb around that?
Um, you know, how about like the face you show is the center of the solar system. I'm not even sure what that means.
Deep.
You
You're
know, like the idea that you are your own sun, right? You know, each
yeah.
face you are
Right.
that's what I get out of those flowers being turned toward we're looking at them, but, you know, the you are the center of, you are the sun in the center of the universe kind of a thing. You are the center of
Mm,
attention.
mm,
You are
mm.
your own shining sun.
You are your own shining sun.
Yeah.
Lovely. Oh, so we did get another. So Sheila wrote, warmth makes your ride smoother.
Yes.
I love it.
Yes. That's great.
Oh my gosh, this is so much
Yeah.
fun. Now I love this. Oh, this has just been so wonderful. Is there anything you want to share about the Living Tarot, or let us know about where we can find you, or how people can connect? And maybe
Yeah.
are you teaching the Living Tarot course like now? Is that ongoing?
I am.
Mhm,
It's
mhm.
ongoing and self-paced. So the difference between the book and the course is that if you take the course, you get to get feedback from me on the final assignments. That's one thing. You get the monthly Zoom meeting. That's another
Mhm.
thing. And the third thing is that if you graduate, you get a one question reading from me, which is a
Ooh.
huge incentive. You know, I mean, it's like it's such a great deal, guys. I mean, it's expensive to have readings with me. I get that. And the other thing is that like if you want you know, if you buy the Living Tarot, you can send me the receipt and get the price of the book off the course. So you can get $22 off the course just by sending me the receipt for your thing.
Oh my God. Can I steal that? That's a fabulous idea.
Yeah.
How can people find you? I wanna put it on the banner.
Yeah, so tsusanchang.com. And if you want to send me a receipt, that's at tsusanchang.com/living tarot book.
Okay, can you put it in the comments? Do you
Oh,
have access?
sure. I
And then I'll put it in
do.
the banner because I wanna make sure I'm
Uh,
spelling it right.
yes.
Yay,
Yes, I
Jolie,
do.
thank you. Happy way and just received. I
You
think
know, I
they will
can
make a
comment,
good
but I don't
a
think
good, pairing,
I
those
don't
2.
think I can give a comment. So,
Mhm.
hmm,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Alright. Let me see if I can pull it up.
Yeah.
Is it in the about? Maybe I'll put it in there. I wanna just
Maybe
make sure.
so.
Where is it? No. It only has your Etsy in the about that I can see.
Oh,
Anyhow, we will when we close up, we'll put it in the comment section below on
yeah.
YouTube so people
Yeah.
will find it, and I'll edit it and put it in later. So, um,
Fantastic.
yeah. Anything else you want to share, or you think you or we?
Can I show you something cool?
Yes, of course.
This is random.
Absolutely.
It has nothing to do with the Living Tarot, except for I made this. You guys have probably seen. I made a Nine of Swords blanket.
What?
It's
That
on
is
Redbubble.
crazy. I am already having issues with insomnia. There's no way I'll have that. Like, oh god.
Well,
Is that
my
can
belief,
you
and this
order
is
that?
actually what Rachel used to say about it too, is that this blanket represents security. It represents the loving embrace of the cosmos. You're actually okay, even when you're
Aw,
feeling anxious. You're actually okay. And
aw.
I actually went to see her, you know, a couple weeks before she died, and I brought her one of these and just kind of laid it over her,
Oh my
and
god.
I think she understood. Yeah.
Thank you so much for telling
Yeah.
me that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad I was able to see her. You know, she is shining her light on us all.
Yeah, I was not able to see her in time, but I was able to call her a couple of times, and I
Yeah,
treasured those last
yeah,
2 calls. Um,
yeah,
and
yeah,
so generous of her and Zoe both to, allow us to have those moments because I know it's not
yeah.
easy to juggle
No,
all
no,
your
it is
her adoring
really.
fans who, you know. Um,
Yeah,
So can people are you selling those too? Can people find those
That's
on
on
your website?
Redbubble, yeah, redbubble.com/shop/ oh,
We'll put it, yeah, I was like,
yeah, it's like tarotista, but if you, like, just search for, Nine of Swords tarot blanket, you'll see it. It's not hard to see.
that's so awesome. Wow.
Redbubble.com/people/tarotista/shop.
Well,
Yeah.
this has been just incredible. I loved having an hour to hang out with you and
Yeah,
geek
you are
out.
the
It's so
best,
good to
Jenna.
see
Thank
you.
you so much for having me over. I wish that we would live closer to each other.
I know,
Yeah.
I do too. Well, we'll see where that may be in the cards depending on what
Who
North Carolina
knows?
does
That's
soon.
right. Yeah.
So, 'cause I was like, I don't know if I can live in a state where
Yeah.
I don't wanna get all political, but I was like,
I
oh.
hear you. I hear
So,
you.
yeah, but everybody, thank you all so
Thank
much
you,
for,
everyone.
coming live and,
Yeah.
I for those of you sorry, I'm gonna plug myself up. In
Yeah.
2 days, Wednesday, I have my free book club.
Yeah.
You can go to my
Buy
website.
it. Buy it. Buy
Aw,
it. Buy it. Buy it.
and we're gonna be doing I think we're at chapter 5, so we just kind of chit chat and talk. It's totally free. So hopefully I will see you there. And we'll put those links in for you, so that people can find and connect and really thank you for the gift of the living tarot. It's
Thank you.
wonderful. Thank
Thank you.
you.
I'm so
Thank
glad.
you.
All
All right, guys, we'll
right.
see you another
Take care,
time.
everyone.
Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.